Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevJour. Today we're going to dive into making a mobile hybrid web app. It's actually kind of simple. We're actually going to be using HTML, CSS3, jQuery, SammyJS, as well as Cordova. So eventually we'll get into the part where we can actually build it out into an app. But what I want to do today is kind of introduce you into the SammyJS, and if you're not familiar with it, it is a JavaScript library that's been around for a while. It'll basically allow you to create templates and routes like you would in something like Laravel. It may not be as robust as what you could do in Laravel, but you can do get and post and create routes. And this is a very easy way to be able to build a pretty good app. I mean, I wouldn't say it would do everything because it will be a hybrid app, but it will allow you to build a rudimentary app if someone ever asks you to build one without having to know native code in order to build Android and iOS. This will allow us to build a website and then take that code and put it into a Cordova web folder and then use Cordova to build out the app that's ready for iOS and Android. So right now I'm not going to go into the if you wanted to do like an API or the functionality like that. Maybe we can get into that into a later tutorial where we can take what we build and actually be able to create dynamic content from a PHP database using an API. But for now, let's just go ahead and take what we did last time, which is we built a live server, I guess, using Visual Studio Code, and we just put on Bootstrap on it, and I just showed you how to spin up the server. So just to kind of recap what we did last time, we installed a add-on for Visual Code, and you can go over here, and it's called Live Server, created by Ritwick Day. And then once you have that installed, you go to your file, and then you hit Go Live, and it'll start this server over here in our browser window. And basically, it's the same thing that you just saw on the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that one out, and close this out. So now we're kind of back to where we was in the last video. So I might go through this a little bit quicker than normal just because it's not really in depth. It's just kind of showing you how to get it started, what it does, and then we can kind of go into a little more details as we go on. So first thing we want to look at is on our live folder that we created in our last tutorial. We just created an index.html file. We added the Bootstrap CSS as well as the Bootstrap JavaScript. So today what we're going to do is install SammyJS and then use it to build our routes. So if we come over to our browser and we search for SammyJS, then we go over here, you have a download button here. Basically we're going to be using the SammyJS script as well as the template script, and that will allow us to create template files and then be able to call those files within the SammyJS routing. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. We're going to download the minified version of it, and then inside of our live folder we're going to create a new folder called JS, and then we're going to create a new file called sammy.min.js, and then we're just going to paste what was in the sammy.min.js that we see over here. So now we have the Sammy file available, but we also want to do the Sammy templates as well. So if you click on the GitHub link, it'll bring you to GitHub, and you can look through their where is it at? I'm trying to do this in the mobile browser right now. Alright, so if we look through their library and then we go to plugins, actually I think we can go into the Minify and see the plugins. There we go. So we also want to find one that says sammy.template. So let's go down, and we got sammy.template.latest. So we want to open this one up, and we're going to view the raw code just so we can copy and paste it like we did with the other one. And then inside of our JS folder we're going to create a new file, and it's going to be sammy.template.min.js, and then we're going to paste that code as well. And then we are going to also come in here and we're going to create a new file called app.js, and this is where our scripting for our basic JavaScript is going to live. And to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we are going to add jQuery, or not add jQuery, we're going to utilize jQuery, and we're just going to call the pages as a function, and then within that function we'll create the routes. So first thing I want to do is start our JavaScript, or jQuery, and then I'm just going to call a function called getPages, and then let's see, we need to close this out. What did I do wrong here? Oh, don't need this. Okay. Alright, so then inside of here we're just going to create a function called getPages. We don't have to pass any parameters or anything like that to it. We're just essentially using this as a way to kind of organize our code. So within this getPages function, we need to reference a div ID that we have on the page. So we currently don't have anything here. So I'm going to, let's say I'm going to remove this, and we're going to do div ID equals app, and then we can close that out. So now we have something that we can reference over here. So we're going to tell it that we want to set a variable called app, and it's going to equal to the Sammy call. And if you're wondering where I'm getting this at, if you actually go to the Sammy.js page, they give you an example that you can get it started with. So let me go back to the SammyJS page. One more. There we go. So basically I'm typing this out right now. So we have we're using our app, and then we're going to pass the function. So we got our div app, so app here, and then we're going to pass the function to actually use the routes and call the template. Okay, so inside of this we want to do this.use, and this is where you would call any of the other plugins that you're using for Sammy. For right now, the only one we're using is the template plugin. That's just telling it that we're going to be using templates for routing. Okay, let me look over this. So we got var app. You can verify it on this too. So we got var app. We got our app ID function, and then we're not using mustache, we're using template, and then we actually define the routes. So let's go ahead and define our first route, which we are going to set up as our I guess the home page. So let's do this dot get, and then it's going to be hashtag/, and this hashtag is very important, and I'll show you whenever we start going through some of the other pages. It's basically like you're loading a page without having to refresh the page, so it's pretty cool. It actually does keep the paging back and forth and stuff like this, so whenever you're creating an app, they won't see that URL bar, but they'll still be able to access the page as if it was a website, be able to hit their back button, and it goes back to the previous page. So it's very important that we keep it the way that I have it right now. And then we're going to pass a context variable inside of this function, and now we're just going to tell it that we want it to swap out whatever content is on the page. So if you go to a different page, but if you go back to this link, it's going to swap out the context, and then it's going to add the context from another template. So let's go ahead, and we're going to use the location, the href, which would be this here, in order to better distinguish which pages that we're trying to hit. So let's create another variable, and we're going to say variable string equals location dot href dot to lowercase, and that's just basically taking whatever's beyond this, whatever this is, it's just making it into lowercase, so we can actually use it for classes, or we can use it for going to get the pages that we need to get. You don't necessarily have to do it that way, but that's just the way that I learned how to do Sammy. So it's just something that it may not even be used anymore, but I've always included that in everything that I've done with Sammy. Okay, so now we're going to use that context variable that we are passing, and we're basically going to say swap with nothing, and that'll make it where whenever you go to change the page, it will remove the previous content so that you're not in there having to try to hide divs, show divs based on whatever page you're on. This is basically going to tell it to take away whatever's there and replace it with a blank, and then render the next step. So let's go do the next one, which will be context.render, and then we're going to reference a page that we'll create in a second. So we're going to create a folder called pages, and then we're going to create these template files. So let's say this one is going to be home.template, and then we're going to pass nothing to it. You could pass variables to it like you could in Laravel or any other kind of PHP routing. Right now this is the home page, we're not pulling anything for it, so we're not going to pass anything to it. So we're just going to leave it like this, and then we're going to append to context, and then this is just going to take whatever's in that template and append it to our app element. And I believe that is it. Let me see. Gotta close this. There. Nope, still not it. Let's see. So we are getting the URL. Just function context. And I don't think I need to close that out. Do I? I might. Let me see what this does. No? Well, we got one function here, one function here. Okay. So that should be closed. Let me get rid of that. Okay. Alright, so I wasn't closing out this function here. I was thinking I was closing it by here, but I wasn't. So we have a function that has an open parentheses here that we needed to close out, and then, or close out here, and then down here was the same thing. And then before we actually close out of our function, we have to initiate it with app.run. And this is, if you don't have anything in your URL, this is what the page will show. Is it's basically going to run this get function. And that's just to make it, this is our default page. So if you want to have your dashboard here, or you want to have a login page here, that's what you would have run there instead of where I have it. So now we need to create this template file. So we're going to come over here and we're going to do a new folder. And then we are going to, new folder, and then we're going to call it pages. And then inside of our pages, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it home.template. And the .template extension, it doesn't really matter. It's just like a blade template, or something like that you use inside of Laravel. Essentially, it's just saying that this is our templates. So don't worry too much about that. So let's do h1, and then we're going to say homepage, just to have that on there. And I think that we need to call the script here. So let me see. We got let me get rid of some of this code to make it where it doesn't keep trying to scroll over for me. So let's go to view. I'm going to do word wrap, and then I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to remove this for now. I mean, this is all just a test, so this isn't really super important for what I'm trying to show right now. Then this. Okay, so just clean it up a little bit. Normally what I would do is, as you've seen in some of our previous videos, is I would create a minified file and then add all of these, and we can get to that later. But for right now, we're going to just start working on our just the Sammy part of it. So let's do script source equals, and then we're going to do js/sammy.min.js, and I don't even think that was a minified file, but that's okay. We can minify it later. And then we're also going to import our templates as well. So sammy.template.min.js, I believe. Yeah. Okay, and then last we need to do here is to add our app.js. So change this to app.js. And I don't know if that's going to work yet, but let's go ahead and give it a try. So it's not displaying anything, which I guess is fine. Not really, but let's look at our console. There's no console errors. So let me see here. So we're running it, swapping it, and we're not using any JSON to populate the data. So that should run. Let me go over here and do a hard refresh. Okay, so it has the slash there, and then let me see, so pages, here, let's get rid of this. Yeah, I think I need it. It's gonna have to go backwards. Okay, so pages, and then home.template, it should display home page. So let me take a look at the code a little bit more. Here, I'm going to put in a console log. I'm just going to make it say here so I can make sure that it's actually hitting this function. And console says that it's unable to load sammy.template.min.js. sammy.template.min.js. Unable to open that. Why is it unable to? Oh, it would help if I spelled template right. Template. Okay. And sammy.min AJAX is not a function. Console. Alright, bear with me just a second. I'm trying to see. There's got to be something I'm missing here. So I got it's probably this slim jQuery. Let me pull a real version of jQuery onto here. So let's try to do 3.5.1 without the slim. Maybe let's see if that's a URL. Okay, so that resolved the AJAX issue. It still says pages home template. So let me move this so y'all can see what I'm looking at here. So it still says the pages can't be found. Pages home. Let me make sure I spelled that right. So template. Okay. All right, let's try it again without this and see what that does. Okay, well, it removed that error. Then we're still getting content is not defined. We're using app, which we should be using. Okay, so I figured out what the issue was. I went ahead and undid what I did so that I can show you. Essentially, it was a non-issue. It was a mistake on my part. So if you look closely at the text that I have here, context, content, changing this to context now loads the home page the way that we expect it to be loaded. So if we come over here, do h2, this is the home page, and now it refreshes where it says this is the home page. So essentially, it was a non-issue. It was a mistake on my part. I thought it was a bigger issue where I was trying to run it in a folder, so I even tried to move it out, but non-issue. So doing it where we were now, even though it has the live URL on it, that's fine, apparently. So we are just going to continue going on now that we have the homepage template done. So we have the homepage. I'm going to go ahead and let's just remove this for now, and let's say that this is home. And then we're going to create another page, and it's going to be a new file. Let's call this one, I don't know, about.template. And then we're going to put about in here. And then from here, we're just going to create another route that's going to be called about. So whenever we do that, it's essentially the same thing that we did here. We just are going to add the word about to it in the place of where the slash currently is. So if we do about here, and then we do about here, now we should have two pages. So if we go back to our browser, and instead of, and you still don't need to have this index.html on it. It doesn't matter. So this is just a little bit cleaner. So now if we do about, it shows the about page. So we've created these two page templates, and if you look at the source code that's being produced inside of your body, you still have all of the information that we have inside of the index.html is being displayed here. So it's essentially our main core template, and then we have the content of that template that can be displayed inside of these pages. So let's say we want to go to the index.html and we want to make it where there is a nav bar that can link to the other pages. We can do that without having to do it inside of the div ID if we want to make this stationary that displays on all pages. The same way you would do it with an include in PHP, we can do it here. And let's just create a simple nav bar, and let's say we want to do this. The first one, we want to have it link to the home page, so we're going to do home. And now let's copy this, and we're going to make this one a link to the about page. So this one is that, this one is that. So now if we click on home, it goes to home, about, it goes to about. So as you can see, it's a very quick modification. So let's give this a little bit of styling to make it where you can actually tell that it's a, it's a mobile app. Again, it's a mobile website, but it's a mobile app. So over here, we're going to do, let's create another link, rel equals style sheet, TLE, style sheet, and then we're going to have it href, and we're going to make it go to CSS slash, let's do style.css. You might also notice that I'm not using slash CSS because it's not really necessary here, because the content of the page is being displayed within this div. So we're never actually leaving the index.html. And this will also help you whenever you go to create it to a Cordova app, because the way Cordova runs it, it takes everything and throws it into a folder, and if you have a slash here, it's going to be referencing the file system of the device that it's on. So you don't necessarily want it to be referencing the file system. You want it to see that file immediately without thinking that it's being localized on the device. You want it to just read it from inside of the app. So having the slash here is detrimental to mobile development using Cordova. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this folder. So new folder, CSS, and we're going to create a new file that's called style.css. And then the first thing we're going to do is nav ul, and let's go ahead and add padding 0, margin 0. And right now I'm just going through it really quickly. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it right now, but it's just the way that I'm doing it. And then we also want to, actually, you know what? Let's throw in a Bootstrap menu here. So let's go to Bootstrap nav. And then we'll just grab some of their code because it'll create this. So let's just grab this for now, and we can paste that where we put in our nav, and then see how it looks. Looks great, sort of. I don't think I copied all of it, so let's get it to line up a little bit better and close out our nav, because I think that's what I did not copy. There we go. So let's just use the Bootstrap navigation for now, because we have this functionality, and we can get rid of all the stuff that we don't need. So let's get rid of this form, because we're not going to have a search on here. We don't need to have a disabled item. We don't need to have a sub item, and we're just going to leave this one, and let's go ahead and get rid of this too. Alright, so take this, that, make this a little bit prettier, and then there we go. So now we have R2, so let's do our home was that, and then about was this. So now we have a mobile menu that will allow us to switch between the pages. And also you might be able to see that it's not making this mobile menu go back up like it normally would, because it's not actually leaving the page, it's just populating different content. So if you ever mess with Angular or something like that, this is kind of the same concept where you're using a single page to display these routes. Okay, so I'm going to do it very simplified on that. But what I want to show you is that the reason why you can create a mobile app like this is because you can also have a desktop version of the app. So whenever you're creating a desktop version, let's say on your about page, you want to have this in a column on its own. So if we go over to our index.html, we're going to put our nav. So we're going to create a row, and then below that we're going to create a div class, and we're going to do column md4. And then we're going to take this nav that we've created and we're going to paste that inside of our md4, which for the view that you're seeing right now in the browser, it's not really going to change anything, but it will allow us to show a desktop version of it as well. So then we're going to do div class column here, just so it fills up the remainder of the screen. Paste that out, and I think I need to move this in. Nope, the row is trying to end right here. So we're going to take this, and now we can close out our row. I messed up something somewhere. So we got our column, other column, and then the app. Alright, let's refresh. Okay, I don't know what that was. But so now if we expanded this out to a desktop, you could see that it has this in one column and this in another column. That way you can control it on a desktop and then reuse that code to be able to just copy it and paste it into a Cordova application and build it out. Cordova, PhoneGap, whichever flavor you want to use. I personally use Cordova. Okay, so this is essentially how you do routing in JavaScript, and what's really cool about this is that you can use AJAX to grab content and push it out to variables. So if you wanted to, let me see, you could use AJAX. Let's see, trying to look through some of my notes to see where I've used it at. I think all of my notes right now just relate it to displaying content. But essentially what you could do is create a class in your home, and then you could, let's say, like div id equals test, and then in the JS for the home page, we could come over here and use jQuery, fill the HTML, and make it say hello. So we come over here, it's called test, and now on the browser, let's go back to the home page. It did not render. Why did it not render? Div ID tests, pushing out the text here. Okay, so I figured out why it's not rendering. It's because the template It's rendering in real time, which means that the page isn't technically gathered at the point that this thing was being done. But if we come over here and we create a script, and then now we add that same code that we had here, this to here, and then refresh the page, now it says hello. So the reason being is that the SammyJS renders the page in real time. So this variable test didn't exist where we were calling it at here because the page itself had not been rendered yet. So that's something to keep in mind. What I typically do in this case is I create a new file and then I call it initialize.js and then call that on the page itself. So here we would do script source equals js init.js, and then we're just going to take this and we're going to move that to our initialize file. So you can modify content on the pages in real time. It's just you can't do them from the app.js where you're creating the routes because they don't exist yet. So it's kind of a wonky thing, but that's the way that I've been able to get around it in the past. So you can change variables based on the page itself just by creating an additional file that you can run other functions. So let's say if you're pulling something from AJAX, you wouldn't necessarily pull it in the route. I mean, you could come up here and then you pass it here as a variable to the route for the route to be able to utilize. That you can probably do it that way. I've never actually done it that way, so that's something I probably need to test out in one of our next videos. But I think what I wanted to accomplish in this video is this, was just to show you how you can use SammyJS to render routes the same way you would in something like Laravel. It is a very simplistic way to do it, but I found that whenever you're doing it like this and then you're calling an API or you're hitting an external PHP function, it allows you to build what you have in your local environment and then push it out using Cordova to build an app. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it that I've used it in the past for. It can create some really in-depth app that doesn't, it's a small footprint. So whenever you go to upload that app, it's essentially just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There's no like really hard working code. All of that can be handled through an API. And that's because Cordova, for one, doesn't let you build PHP code into your app because it won't be able to render it because it's a JavaScript framework. So it's something like this would prevent you from having to use a lot of jQuery to hit your functions. It makes it a lot more secure. You can actually run authentication and stuff like that using your API. So I think for this video I'm going to go ahead and end it. And you might have noticed that today there was a premiere on Monday, which I think I'm going to start doing that from now on because my Friday premieres at 2. It put a lot of pressure on me to do these videos, especially since I work during the week. So it made it where it was kind of difficult, especially with the holidays and everything that came up in the past few weeks. So it's a little bit easier. I have the weekend to create a video rather than having to work during the day and then try to create a video at night and have it ready for Friday. So I think I'm going to start doing my Monday premieres around this time. So if you like this video, like the channel or like the video, subscribe to the channel. I have a lot more stuff I want to do with SammyJS and Cordova. Right now we're just kind of hitting the top of the iceberg with what you can do with SammyJS and Cordova and how you can actually build out an app. So if you like it, again, smash the like button, let me know that you like it, leave a comment, tell me what you think about it. But I think for right now I'm going to go ahead and end this, and maybe next time we will get into how to pull content from a external PHP file that you could also create here and then run it as part of a website, and then on the app you actually call it as an API. So I think maybe next time we'll get into that. So if you want to see that, stay tuned and I'll talk to you later.